Alright, any last stragglers coming in for games on Android TV? Now is your last chance to get seating as we start the epic show! Woo! Alright, Jamil, how's that for an intro?
That is an incredible one. Holy moly. I wish you would do that for all of our Android TV meetings.
Yeah, it's the I.O. energy. I can just feel it coursing through my veins. Maybe it's just the caffeine though. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. We both had a lot of caffeine, lots of coffee and tea. There's still a few seats back here if you guys want to get seated.
Alright, how much time we got? Well, officially we have exactly 60 seconds. So, how do we feel about doing a little chant? Woo! I-O, 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 yeah! Oh, you guys need more coffee. Alright, I think we're going to just start.
Let's just get started because we have a lot of stuff to cover.
Okay.
So, hey everyone, I'm Jamil Moledina. I do business development for Google Play, primarily working with our strategic partners to provide technical monetization and featuring support on the main store for phones and tablets. I also work on emerging platforms like Android TV and generalized storefront improvements, which I can't go into any detail about, but certainly the Android TV part is what we're here to talk about. And my colleague here, Krispy.
I'm Krispy, I'm the engineering counterpart of Jamil. That means I deal with the code and all the engineering stuff that comes with it. I love my job, I love games, and we are the dynamic duo.
I also love games, it's not that I don't love games. So, we're here to talk about Android TV. There are several things that we're going to cover very quickly. Why Android TV is important, what it is, and then we're going to spend a little bit more time on exactly how you do it, and then show you some cool stuff at the end. So, why Android TV? Connected devices are a really expanding market. However, they're a little bit fragmented at the moment. You have multiple devices that are connected in the living room. However, they're different categories, different systems, and each of them has a different leader or several products in that category that you would otherwise have to adapt to. Instead, Android TV is a platform that simplifies this process. So you build once and you deploy everywhere. This is kind of the iconic example of what Android TV looks like. This is our UI. This was the Nexus Player reference device that we released last year. However, there are devices from a lot of partners in these various categories coming to market. Sony TVs, all the smart TVs for Sony from this point forward are Android TV enabled. You can get them in Best Buy now, and they're also available in the UK, rolling out in Western Europe and other territories as well.
And you can play with them upstairs on the third floor in the Android TV area.
That's exactly right. Same with NVIDIA devices. They've got a set-top box, a media player, that is actually very high fidelity and demonstrates the elasticity of the platform. A little bit more on that later. Razer is also out, as well as free on the cable box, set-top box area. So, Android TV is Android. That's the one thing we really want to make sure is clear. It's not reinventing a new platform for you. It's a single API for phones, tablets, and television. It's the same Google Play that you're already used to working with. It's the same featuring process. It's the same criteria. And standardization. It's one set of game controllers, gamepad controllers that work on all Android systems. So we're trying to make this as seamless as possible. Now, this gives you a snapshot of what the store looks like today.
Although it's changed slightly.
Oh yeah, that's right. This is what the store looked like yesterday.
Yes.
We have more categories to show you, but also, this gives you an idea of what the layout looks like. We're experimenting with discovery, showing that there's more stuff off to the side, and also you see that there's a mix of indie and high-end games. And we'll cover that in a little bit more detail. Here you see an indie game, Beach Buggy Racing, made by two guys, also features the Nearby Connections API that Krispy will go into a little bit more detail.
You can play it in the arcade.
Yes, you can play it right there.
And go on.
And Cast of Illusion, you see the range from a small indie to a large media company. Dorothy, did I get that right? Thank you. And also cult hits like Goat Simulator, which was a huge hit on Steam. And Oddworld Stranger's Wrath, which gets a great second life on Android TV. So we're talking about games coming from Android, but we're also talking about games coming from PC and console. Classics that you can now keep with you forever and have playable at all times. Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars, NBA Jam. And also modern games that people are really getting into, like Game of Thrones from Telltale. We actually have all of the Telltale games on Android TV, and they play the same on all Android devices. And Crossy Road.
Who's played Crossy Road? Almost everybody in the room.
All right, I guess that ends that conversation. And now, so that's about bringing your game easily. It's already well-tuned and adapted. It can be 5 minutes, as the BD guy, the engineer will tell you, maybe give you perhaps a better
I'll give you the real estimate.
These guys took a month, because they started off with a game that played in portrait mode. These guys are Infinite Dreams. This game is Skyforce 2014. And they worked with what they had for phones and tablets, but their game was inspired from classic living room shoot 'em up play. And so they adapted it to this. Landscape mode, they added a second starship so you would have a couch co-op. They worked with the UI so it fit better for a large screen display. And you know, they tuned the monetization so it would fit for a living room experience.
And eventually you can play it.
And you can play that one right across the way as well. So, you know, this is a little bit more detail on the specific devices. This is the Sony TV showing the Android TV UI. I want to spend just a moment talking about the NVIDIA Shield Android TV. I mentioned elasticity. You can get a lot of very interesting games on this based on the chipset involved here. It runs Crysis 3, Doom 3, Borderlands the pre-sequel, and it really shows what you can do to with the Android TV platform if you have the hardware for it. We are currently focused on a certain area of games that is kind of at the iPhone 5 level, you know, being able to be played on all devices, but this shows what you can do across the board.
So with that, I'm going to take this clicker and it's my turn to talk. It is actually my turn to talk.
It is this time.
I'm going to show you a brief video because Jamil's gone over a lot of the business reasons why you should look at Android TV and take it seriously, but let's actually see what one developer, Ace Adventures, who's produced a game called Chem Caper, again, something you can play in the arcade area. So I'm just going to play this briefly.
Introducing Chem Caper, the first chemistry RPG brought to you by the teachers of Sri Amas International School. It started with our teachers lamenting that if only our students can get as excited about the sciences and the maths as the teachers are. Our vision for education is to impact the lives and learning of as many students as possible. Through Chem Caper, that vision can become a reality.
So why chemistry? It's the hardest science subject to understand. Everybody knows that. Chem Caper is designed for students to pick up chemistry concepts through play.
One name, rubidium. And I don't mean the chemical element, not quite, but the moonbeam who's going to give you your first glimpse into the world of Sciav. Fight, explore, and learn through his eyes as he encounters pedicles in peril, Alcyons running amok, and puzzling premonitions. So be prepared for a chemical adventure.
Act 1 of Chem Caper is for students at 10 to 14 years old to become familiar with chemistry way before they are formally introduced to chemistry as a subject. Our question is, why not?
When we first got our hands on the Android TV, we set it up and get our game running within an hour. We spent 4 weeks to redesign the controllers and do some integration with Google Play services. It is the most effortless game porting that we've ever done.
The most effortless game porting they've ever done. That doesn't come lightly. But let's face it, TVs don't exactly exhibit the same interaction patterns you might be used to on phones or tablets. Developers often ask me about moving their game to TV with a, hey, can I just run my phone or tablet app on the TV? And, well, it depends. TVs serve a specific purpose, so they generally don't have the same kind of hardware features that other Android-powered devices do, like a touchscreen, for example. With a few simple changes, though, you can adjust your app to run and become Android TV ready. So let's start with the most obvious, touchscreen. It needs to be set to required equals false in your manifest, because touch is implicitly true by default on Android. Doing this will help you avoid getting filtered from the Play Store right out of the gate. While we're at it, there are a few other small adjustments we should make that might be needed to avoid getting filtered. Some permissions imply hardware requirements that you may need to override explicitly. With all these changes to the manifest and the implications for your game, or that your game may be running on a device without certain hardware, you may need to check for the existence of this hardware at runtime. This can be easily accomplished as well through the use of the Package Manager Has System Feature API. This will let your game reason about what capabilities it can and should expose. If you're building an app that operates on both TV devices and other devices, you may need to check whether or what kind of device your app is running on and adjust the behavior accordingly. For instance, if you have an app that can be started through an intent, your application should check the device properties to determine if it should start a TV-oriented activity, or a phone activity, or a tablet activity. The recommended way to determine if your app is running on a TV device is to use the UI Mode Manager Get Current Mode Type method and check if the device is running in television mode. With this simple change out of the way, all we need to do now is declare what to display as the launch point for the game on Android TV itself. Adding the Leanback Launcher filter category to one of your intent filters identifies your app as being enabled for TV and is required for the app to be considered a TV app on Google Play. Declaring this intent also identifies which activity your app to launch, or your app should launch when the user selects it from its home screen banner. For games, we also need to add the Android is game flag attribute to the application element of the manifest. So you set this to true. This way, the game will show up in the games row on the Android TV home screen. Next, an Android TV app must provide a home screen banner for each localization supported. The banner is an app launch point that appears on the TV home screen either on the apps or games row, depending on if the is game flag is set to true. A banner is a simple drawable fixed size, 320 by 180 pixels. Make sure you include text that identifies your game so users can quickly make their launch selection. Now that you've taken care of the housekeeping on the guts of your application, let's quickly move on to what you need to do to deploy on Play. Under the store listing area, make sure to provide at least one TV screenshot. Then include a high-res icon, feature graphic, promo graphic, and TV banner, the same one that's in your application. Once you've done this, you need to head on over to the pricing and distribution area and make sure that the distribute your app on Android TV is checked. This will trigger a review by Google to ensure that your game meets the minimum requirements for TV. Once you get the green light from Google that it's passed review, users will be able to buy and install your game. Once installed, your game will show up on the games row of the Android TV home launcher, as I mentioned before. And now that your game is running where it should be, let's take a look at input control. Most Android TVs will ship with a simple remote control, or at the very least allow a user to install the Google-provided Android TV remote app on their phones. This input type is the lowest common denominator for input on Android TV. If your game can support a simplified input scheme, then your game can potentially reach every Android TV user. It's important to understand that the bulk of Android TV users will likely be what has been coined as a casual gamer. All this means is that their familiarity with a 16-button controller and deep game complexity might not be as great as the more traditional core gamer. Game developers who recognize this and are able to adapt their gameplay to accommodate a simple input control system can reap the benefit of being accessible to almost everyone on Android TV. Hand in hand with input control is the idea of providing control instructions to your users. Most games have tutorials to guide the user into the game mechanics, but on TV it's also important to provide an input reference to the user based on the input control type they're using. We see here how Beach Buggy Racing instructs the user how to use a simple remote control to control the race car. Beach Buggy Racing also provides controller mapping instructions if the player has connected a game controller. This sort of adaptive controller mapping is important to help orient the user and your customers towards your Android TV game. Google has provided specific generic controller graphics for remotes and gamepads that you probably should and could use in your game when detailing controller mappings. In order to show up properly in the game store, where it says gamepad required, you need to include a uses feature for Android hardware gamepad in the app manifest. Now, there is, however, one little thing here that's a little teensy-weensy counterintuitive. You must declare Android hardware gamepad required false. Okay? The reason being that game controllers are actually accessories. They're not part of core Android. And they may be turned off at the time of purchase or not accessible initially. So this is why you need to set it as required equal false. Otherwise you will filter your game from everything. So controllers, accessories. So in order to get gamepad required flag on your store listing, as we saw earlier, you set the gamepad feature to required false in your manifest. In cases where your game works with just a simple remote control or D-pad on a game controller, you actually don't need to include this at all. Okay? Moving on, Bluetooth gamepads and other radio-connected input devices may attempt to save power by periodically going into sleep mode or disconnecting from the TV device. This means that a game might be interrupted or restarted if it's not configured to handle these connection events. Any TV app activity that is subject to disconnect and reconnect events must be configured to handle these cases in the manifest. By subscribing to config changes, your game can be notified when a controller or other input device connects or disconnects and handle the situation appropriately, maybe with a dialogue or some other system state change for the players. Moving on to other connectivity items, let me briefly cover networking. Android TVs have wired Ethernet ports as well as Wi-Fi to allow for fast networking. This means that Wi-Fi may be turned off, but the TV can still be connected to the internet over a hardline. Mobile developers have traditionally not had to think about wired network devices. It's not been common for developers to build into their network code checking that they need to consider anything else other than cellular and Wi-Fi. The good news is that it's really easy to check for network connectivity without caring about the type of the connection. Simply use the connectivity manager. Remember, you need to request network access network state in your manifest in order to be able to do this. If you really need to check for a wired Ethernet port being active, you can check if the active network is of type Ethernet. Understanding the active hardware allows your game to make good decisions about using bandwidth. Now, with connectivity solidly understood, I'd like to move on to something we're really excited about. Okay? There's this new API protocol that we announced earlier this year at GDC. It's called Nearby Connections. With this new API protocol, gamers can seamlessly connect their smartphones and tablets onto a running Android TV over your local network. Nearby Connections has already been harnessed by several developers, such as Vector Unit, who integrated it into beach buggy racing, where players can connect their phones or tablets into their Android TV and engage in local multiplayer racing. Other developers, such as Underwater Apps, have integrated Nearby Connections to enrich their game for TV interaction. Let me show you now a brief video where they describe the problem and solve for them.
Hey, I'm Abetis from Underwater Apps. We're developers of Top Ventures, which is our take on a one-tap simplistic RPG.
Besides all the stats, heroes, dungeons and spells, it's basically an endless tapping game. And we had some of our players doing, well, basically this. So we're considering adding a local multiplayer. Making a multiplayer is hard. You have to either make server-side software or dive deep into local networking stuff. Take care of possible disconnect, network lost, player got bored and other crazy scenarios. With Nearby Connections, we did what would take 1 month of work in 4 days. You only worry about making a simple protocol for devices to talk to each other. Like monster hit, HP changed, or monster died, you don't worry about network. To make it work on TV, we took our tablet form factor, made a map of button neighbors, and it was done. It was even easier for us, because Top Ventures is made with native Java and our UI is built using Overlap2D open source toolkit. Because our players are already connected to Google Play services, we were able to send their name and photo URL over the Nearby Connections send message method, and display it when new player is connected. Making it work on Android TV and adding Nearby Connections API completely transformed the solo Top Ventures experience into a different beast.
Cool, eh? 4-day integration path. That's pretty exciting. So, as you just saw, TV combined with Nearby Connections can offer a powerful combination when engaging players. So, Jamil and I would like to demonstrate a couple of games for you that we feel illustrate some high points of what we've discussed so far. Okay.
Alright, so...
Alright, do you want to drive?
Yeah.
Okay.
First we're going to show you a game that...
does not commute. Are you having connection issues here? Why don't you let me drive and you talk?
Okay.
Does that work?
Yes.
So, by the way, the NVIDIA controllers, they work over Wi-Fi direct, or you can plug them in and they have a USB interface. So you'll see, controller connected! And that's what we're relying on because there's way too much Wi-Fi.
Actually, I would love to play. I love
Would you? Okay, you drive. You just won't be able to see much.
Yes. Okay,
I'll talk.
so Does Not Commute, we featured on the main store a couple of weeks ago. It's a fantastic game from Mediocre Games. And it's really hard to describe. Basically, you are running multiple parallel commute paths, and you have to beat the timer.
It's like car inception. So as you're driving your vehicles, every new vehicle you get on a level has to maybe cross the path of the vehicle you put before it. And as you can imagine, as you build up moving vehicle after vehicle, it can get pretty crowded pretty quickly. This is actually one of my favorite games. I played it for, I think, 6 or 7 hours on Tuesday, just before I.O., making sure everything was working, and I just kind of got sucked into it. It's a really engaging experience on the TV, more so I found than just playing it on a tablet. It kind of exemplifies some really good interaction features here. And I hope this is a port from an existing Android app. Jamil, I don't know if I'm going to drive back to Mountain View with you.
Okay, maybe this is the time we switch to the next game.
Alright, why don't we do that?
Alright.
So, the next game we're going to show you is called Telos Principle. This one isn't launched yet, but we wanted to give you a good look at what sort of graphics capabilities are available. Do you want me to drive?
Yeah, why don't you take
Why don't you talk?
This is a very interesting game because it's a high-end game available on PC right now. It's a Steam game. It's a first-person puzzle game. It's actually another one of these really amazing cult hits that have really captured the public imagination. And what we think is really important, the reason we want to show you this, is that it kind of illustrates what is possible on the Android TV platform, that you can bring your high-end PC game over to the platform. What you saw with Does Not Commute was a game that is already a high-fidelity game that runs on most modern phones and tablets. We also have Pac-Man Championship Edition DX, which is releasing soon. That's playable on the displays off to the side here. And Tap Ventures, which we just showed you, is also playable. And
we just can't do nearby connections in the arcade because the Video Shield TVs that are out there are on a wired network, and it's not the same one that you guys can connect to, unfortunately. But go to the third floor, we do have all of these games to play with. And I do apologize that this is taking a while to load, but when you see the graphic fidelity of Telos and the fact that they haven't finished optimizing this yet, it'll probably make some sense. Maybe we want to talk to some of the other partners that have launched recently. I'm excited about them.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's really, I mentioned Telltale a moment ago, but we have a lot of our key partners coming to the platform as well. For example, Disney's on the platform, Electronic Arts is on the platform, but also what we're aiming for is to really showcase what the potential is for the TV environment, for the living room environment. We're looking for games that have a high degree of action, a high degree of visual fidelity that scale well to the living room. And of course, we will be opening this up. It is Android. It's meant to support all games and all apps possible. And you saw the announcement that we have HBO Now as well coming to the platform soon. So the intent is to be the media player, the entertainment device for the living room.
This last square is killing me.
Yes. Yeah, that square is...
There we go. All right. Yes. So with all those polygons loaded, famous Devolver digital logo. Test. Can you guys hear me? Is my mic still good?
So it's probably going to be difficult to show you a full puzzle.
I'm just going to go into demo, I'll play the demo quickly.
Yeah.
That way you guys can just sort of see some of the environments that are there. And I'll try and do some stuff really quick because I know we're almost out of time. So just a new game. Alright, sounds good. And let's render a couple of 100 billion polygons. See if I can remember which path to go on. This game is all about puzzle solving, and these are real-time shaders, and casting shadows and everything. There's a lot of compute power behind this game. This is the one I want to do. Yeah, the easy path. Alright, so I'm going to pick up this. I'm going to drop my jammer here to get past this. And then grab this other jammer. I like this sideways is a little awkward.
So I think that kind of gives everyone a snapshot of what the puzzle solving is like in the game. Yeah. And in the interest of the next speakers that probably want to get onto the stage, we should probably wrap here.
Yep, so we'll take two questions.
Okay, 2 questions.
I can't see hands because I'm quiet.
And looks like we have a shy audience, so feel free to come to Krispy or myself after we get off the stage and ask us any questions you like. Thank you very much. We appreciate your attendance.